Miigwech. Thank you, Bear Creek. Yesterday we witnessed and welcomed these sacred items coming into our territory. This morning we want to complete the handover ceremonies of these sacred items. I'd like to call upon the University of Victoria delegation, Dr. Catherine Krull, Dr. Susan Lewis, Dr. Rabina Lewis, and Latina Kynes to come forward along with the President Venzina of Algoma University and Chief Robert Joseph of Reconciliation Canada and Christine Lenz from the National Centre of Reconciliation. As these people come forward, I also invite James Roach to the podium to speak on the significance of the ceremony and to oversee the handover. Miigwech.
Morning, everyone. You can all sit down. Some of the things that I've learned over the years as in my search for spiritual and Ojibwe ways, I've been taught that spirit comes first. And in our way, everything we do in our life, in our day, is in spirit. It's been my pleasure to assist Ozma and Algoma University in directing and guiding them in the spiritual way of our people. The last couple of days, we've been in ceremony from the time the sun come up to the time the sun went down. And in this way, we come together and we ask the Creator and the spirits to be with us today as we walk through today, learning the different things that we need to. This morning, we're going to pass these paddles on, this walking stick. And Ozma, did you want to talk about the paddles and the... Okay. So these paddles, they were created in the same spirit as this walking stick was created. The walking stick was created to give guidance, protection, and companionship to the ones who held on to that stick. It was to be shared with different people in their university, and it guided them in their walk into a better experience for their students. The paddles were created in the same spirit, and it's the spirit that are in these paddles that we honor and respect in this way today. So with that, I'll pass it over to Ozma, and we'll pass the paddles on. Miigwech.
So we're going to ask now Reconciliation Canada to accept the walking stick, which will find its resting place in the Reconciliation Centre. So if we want to do that handover now. So this walking stick has been working very hard for universities across the country for 5 years. And we want to recognize all of the work that has happened over the last 5 years. It really has been exceptional. Sometimes we're harder on ourselves when we think about all of the work we still have yet to do. But this stick is a reminder of everything that has happened as a result of the commitments that we made 5 years ago. Reconciliation is an interesting journey. The elders that speak to us, they laugh, right? And they say, we've been doing reconciliation for 40 years, before it was even called reconciliation. But 5 years ago, Universities Canada started this forum, and this stick was asked in ceremony to really help us and guide us. And we thank it for all of the work that it's done over the last 5 years, because I think it really has helped us set the stage for the next chapter of our journey. So the next stick is going to stay with University of Victoria, and maybe we could just step forward and show this stick, or sorry, this paddle. You saw that the paddle was very prominent on our logo, as was the canoe. And we tried to represent in the logo for the forum a cross-country perspective. So this paddle, as it was explained to us by the artist, will go back with University of Victoria. It is meant to represent the work as well, the work that's already been done in terms of reconciliation, and to continue to remind the university of its important work that it must continue to do. The second paddle, we're going to actually ask Reconciliation Canada, and I believe Chief Robert Joseph is with us today to accept that paddle. And it is going to actually accompany the walking stick back to Reconciliation Canada. This paddle was designed by a residential school survivor. And as the artists, and there was a team of artists that worked on these paddles, and as it was explained to us, it's really important, and it's been an intentional part of our planning for the 3 days, to ensure that we're listening to these paddles. And so what we were asked to think about was ensuring that we had elders in the planning, participating in the forum, and bringing guidance as we think about the next 5 years. So this paddle represents the elders and the wisdom that's already here in the country, and it also will have a prominent spot in the Reconciliation Center. And the third paddle, it doesn't have a design on it yet. So the carver of that paddle, as he explained it to us, he wants the universities that are now stepping forward to host these reconciliation forums to put their design, their artistic lens, interpretation on the paddle as they determine what they're going to do in service of reconciliation. So this paddle was explained to us that this is about the young people. This is about the future. So you have the past, the present, the future. The elders have great hope for the future. As we were sitting on our planning teams, this kept coming up over and over and over again. We have probably about 40 to 50 young people joining us over the next 2 days, and we've been very intentional about including student voice throughout those 2 days as they come up onto the stage and share their reflections about where they see reconciliation going in this next phase of our journey. So this paddle is going to be presented. There are 5 co-hosts here with us today: the University of Northern British Columbia, Cape Breton, Algoma University, Nipissing University, and Shingwauk Kinoomaage Gamig, which is one of the 8 Indigenous institutes that have been formed recently. So we're going to ask Della Anaquad from Shingwauk Kinoomaage Gamig to accept this paddle on behalf of the 5 hosts. What's really important, and what the artists stress to us and the elders who we've spoken to, is that we really need to use these paddles, and we need to continue thinking about the walking stick and the work that it did. These paddles will help us if we let them. They will guide us. We have some very difficult conversations to have over the next couple of days. We're going to be faced, as we were yesterday. Yesterday, we really focused on truth, debwe'endaagziwin, sorry. Debwe'endaagziwin means truth in Ojibwe, and we had a number of elders working with us to really teach us deeply about the truth of the residential schools experience. Over the next 2 days, these paddles are going to help us think about the next 5 years. And we really want you to think about that. What are we going to put on that blank paddle? You're going to hear from speakers from across this country and others who have come to share their thoughts on what we need to be thinking about as a university system, considering some of the stats. You're going to get very specific data sets. You're going to come face to face with experiences of people. You're going to be provoked to go deeper with change. And these paddles, if we ask them, will help us connect our hearts and our minds. Often, especially when I first came to Algoma, the elders would tell me, you're way up here, you do too much thinking, and you haven't engaged with spirit, you haven't engaged your heart. And so that's what we're trying to do over the next 2 days, is engage our spirit and our minds and our bodies to really do some very deep reflection about the role that each of us will play in this next 5-year journey, individually, collectively, and in our organizations. So miigwech for bringing the paddles here, big miigwech to the artists who carved these paddles, and for all of you, interact with the paddles. That's why they're here today. Take some time to speak to them. They're listening to us. Their spirit is in there and they know what to do. Yesterday we had ceremony to ask them to start their work. So miigwech everyone for coming up. We'll put them in the stands now, and then we'll take our seats and back to the MCs.
Thank you so much, James, for assisting in that protocol and ceremony, and to the delegation that assisted in that, and those that brought forward the sacred items. We thank you so much. Heartfelt recognition to Ozma as well for her ability to grasp exactly the importance of the protocol and the ceremony. And as I think about that and think and reflect on yesterday, I want to draw a little bit of a contrast here. As I'm sitting here thinking, and in the backdrop we have the famous artist Norville Morris. So his work is being displayed here behind me and us. And I think about his life and how he used the expression of art to describe who he was as an Ojibwe visionary. And I think back to yesterday when Shirley Horn was speaking at the church just down below the hill. And what I see, and this is the first time I've ever been in that church, but what I saw from the outside of the church was a very beautiful building. But many of you have probably experienced the same thing. When you walk into that building, it's very cold, it's very lonely, it seems very dismal, and you could feel something just isn't right in there. And obviously, that's the legacy that we speak about. Now think for a second what the survivors, the children of Shingwauk, must have went through in being taken from their homes, their lands, from their families, and having this natural need to want to express who they were, their humanity, who they are as human beings, those creator-given gifts, and that being cut off from them and having to come here and experience that cold, dark, dismal reality of another religion, another spiritual beliefs pushed on those children. But what we're witnessing now, and why reconciliation is actually moving in such a rapid and constructive pace, is because we're now seeing that expression of humanity, being able to express those creator-given gifts. These are the things that we see in front of us today, and why the protocols are so important, why we're returning back to the ceremonies, and why church and state are now recognizing the importance of these protocols and the integration of that even in who Canada is today as a country. So again, let's give those folks a big round of applause, because they are doing reconciliation in action, and what we witnessed here today was historic. So let's again give them a big round of applause.